Hello, welcome in. It's the PHNX Cardinals post-game show live from Gila River Resorts and Casinos, Wild Horse Pass. I'm Johnny Venerable. He's Brack here in the house. Thank you to all that stopped in. We're having a great time on the post-game show. Despite the loss, we had some friends here, some diehards, some watch-alongs, and they watched the Cardinals get run over by Christian McCaffrey.
They did. It was a dominating win for the San Francisco 49ers, the NFC West champions. You hate to see it happen on your home turf, but it was adopted, unfortunately, by Niners fans today.
Yeah.
And it was really, they imposed their will, especially in the second half on this Cardinals team. You know, that offensive line was just pushing around this poor defensive line at the end of it until they kind of called off the dogs. And you saw the disparity, right? It's wide right now.
Yeah.
And Monty Ossenfort and Jonathan Gannon are going to be tasked this offseason with trying to narrow that gap. But, man, is it as wide as the Grand Canyon right now?
This post-game show, by the way, is brought to you by our friends at Arizona Lottery. Don't forget to get out and buy your holiday scratchers today. They make phenomenal Christmas gifts, stocking stuffers, if you will. I'd like to stock my stuffing with some talent for the Arizona Cardinals. Because, again, with all due respect,
stocking.
Yeah, whatever it is. I'm not seeing it today. It was difficult, man. We thought after that first possession, like, this would maybe be a pound-for-pound, shot-for-shot game for the Arizona Cardinals. That it was not. It was the San Francisco 49ers, specifically in the second half, they scored 24 points, most of that coming in the third quarter. The line of scrimmage play, I thought, was especially damning. Yeah, both the offensive and defensive line for the Niners completely overpowered, as you said, the Arizona Cardinals. And again, like, you're not close to competing with this team. You hope to be. You hope to be at some point. But as the Cardinals have continued to erode prior to this year, thanks to Steve Keim and Cliff Kingsbury and Michael Bidwell to some degree, the Niners have used that time, even with a ridiculous Trey Lance trade, to get stronger. Every mistake you've made, they've capitalized on. They've doubled and tripled down on what works. And today you kind of saw the culmination of that. Let's hope that this 45-29 result score may not have been as close as that final score indicates. Mm-hmm. Like, hopefully this is it. Like, from here on out, Cardinals and Monty Ossenfort and JG, you need to close the gap here. What moves do you need to make sure that your fans, number one, don't have to endure Niner fans in your own stadium 5-1, but then also that you can be competitive and be in a fourth quarter against the Niners?
Here's where you can immediately address it and sit in that third overall in the upcoming NFL draft. As it stands, everybody's killing it in the chat. Actually, let's take a look at our first super chat of the afternoon. Nazir saying, got the entire receiving corps, cut
bad.
Pascal, let Hollywood walk. K1 straight up had nowhere to go upfield. Look, Ward had 2 picks. His 2 picks matched the 2 receptions. That's the high. That's the wide receiver high for receptions on the day for the Arizona Cardinals today. That's unacceptable. You had Greg Dortch with 2 catches, and you had Rondell Moore with 2 catches, and we'll get more into it. But that's not a big boy wide receiver core. When you look at the other side of the field, the other sideline, and what Brock Purdy, I mean, he's got an embarrassment of riches. I mean, he's got Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk making big-time plays for him, while poor Kyler Murray, all he's got is Trey McBride. You love what you see from James Conner. Elijah Higgins scores his first career touchdown. Tight ends, running backs, no wide receivers. And unfortunately, in a return first game in 3, Michael Wilson was on the side of a milk carton.
I'm going to tell you right now, we knew this before Kyler Murray came back, whether it was Dobbs or Clayton Tune or even Colt McCoy. Statistically, based on advanced metrics, the Cardinals had the worst separation of any wide receiving core in the NFL. Like, that was a thing before Kyler Murray came back. Now, you thought maybe Kyler Murray hopefully can elevate some of these guys. And listen, I think Greg Dortch has been criminally robbed of opportunities. He was their most effective pass catcher today, taking shots left and right. But this wide receiving core is terrible. It was malpractice for an NFL level today. And, like, yes, Kyler Murray can play better. Had 2 interceptions today, had the pick 6. We talked about that. Guy's coming off an ACL, playing unequivocally the best team in the NFL. And the Cardinals, unequivocally, everybody thought were going to be the worst team in the NFL. And he's out there trying to compete. Here's what I know. Rondale Moore's second-round pick, he's a bust at this point. Michael Wilson, clearly not healthy, hit a rookie wall. And
Right.
Hollywood Brown, see ya, goodbye. I don't have any interest. I'm going to tell you right now, I'm watching Hollywood Brown, a part of this Arizona Cardinal team in 2024. What do you get from him playing? Like, I get it. He's got a heel injury. He's banged up. It is the most underwhelming year for a career wide receiver I have ever seen. It's really demoralizing. You counted on this guy to come out and make plays for it. They told me behind the scenes, I had heard he was feeling good about this game.
Right.
He practiced. He looked good. He left the game with a heel
He's
injury.
out there dancing in practice. He's telling us in the media, in the locker room, saying he feels like he's put something good on tape, even though the production's not there, where this game pointed to Kyler Murray needs a productive wide receiver.
Help
If you're
your quarterback.
going to be a wide receiver out there and you're putting on out tremendous tape away from the football, in spite of lack of production,
Yeah.
then production needs to be elsewhere on the wide receiver core. You've got to be opening up opportunities for someone else. That's not happening. Our producer, Damon Dog, award-winning producer, was saying even with Michael Wilson, he just looked like he was attached to the hip of a defender. He just couldn't get any separation. There's no separation going on. I think Michael Wilson's going to be a good player in this league. He's already shown, potential there.
Yeah.
But as far as how a defense could probably key in on him and do things to stop a rookie third rounder is a little bit easier at this point, at this stage in his career. The Cardinals wide receiver core, we thought it was bad. We were sitting hovering our hand over the panic button.
Yeah.
And I think truly we can do that now. It becomes, if not, the defensive line's there, no doubt about
Pass
it. The
rusher.
cornerback room, pass rush. The wide receiver is just as desperate as of a need as anywhere else on this team.
It's 1A, 1B, 1C, whatever the hell you want to call it. It's a disaster. And I think I can tell you that this franchise, Austin Ford and Gannon, took over this receiving core hoping that they could salvage a lot of the meh that Steve Keim saddled them with. I'm sorry, what are we, 14 games into this season? I could say you've salvaged about enough as you can.
Yeah.
Like Trey McBride, we're going to talk about it here in a second, is the ultimate outlier. Thank God for Trey McBride, big number 85. You've given Hollywood Brown and Rondale Moore every opportunity, and they have let you down.
Yeah.
They've let you down. And so now you need to be honest with yourself and say, just because this franchise under Steve Keim used a second-round pick on a wide receiver for like 5 straight years, look it up, it's true, doesn't mean that this team can afford to pass on a receiver early in the draft. This franchise right now with 3 games remaining, you would assume is 3 games away from a blue-chip, Hall of Fame level prospect in Marvin Harrison Jr. That's what the Cardinals are facing. They have a very winnable game next week in Chicago. They have a very winnable game, I believe, at home against Seattle. Who knows what they're going to be playing for in the finale. But it's going to be really tempting as they continue to evaluate, like, is it worth losing Marvin Harrison Jr. at this point? Because there are good wide receivers. It's a great class. But, like, today, of all days, it's telling you, it's screaming you in the face. The Cardinals had 436 yards of offense. Now, over 200 of that came on the ground. We know Drew Petzing can manufacture offense on the ground. I actually think the offensive line was pretty solid today. I think a lot of those sacks, the 3 that Kyler Murray took, coverage sacks, right? There was only 1 or 2 maybe. One specifically that I remember was the offensive line getting engulfed. I thought Paris Johnson Jr. played well. Mm-hmm. This team needs special. They need playmakers to go up like Trey McBride did in the red zone and help out Kyler Murray. Again, like, this is not, we're not going to sit here and not put blame on K1. But, like, watch the game with your eyes. People cannot get open against anybody.
Yeah, 2 bad passes, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
And you also saw where this offense stalled out. And they had to settle for field goals, and where the 49ers make you pay, right? And you can't give them a pick 6, and you can't not, when you get in the red zone, convert. And it's because they're so rock solid on 3rd down, and they were so rock solid in the red zone, the 49ers were on offense, that they put their foot on your jugular.
Yeah.
And, that just was on full display today, especially with the disparity as far as talent on the roster.
Well, and I also think, like, the Cardinals needed to play a perfect game. We talked about it. The Niners had opportunities to make this a one-possession game. The official played a part in that. Like, the Cardinals had a return touchdown that got wiped away that could have gone either way. And then the egregious call when Budda Baker recovered a clear fumble off of George Kittle, that the officiating crew just opted to say, no, that's incomplete. Like,
Right.
those are 2 possessions, one of which ended in a score that would have dramatically changed this game. So I have no issue with the effort today. I thought the effort was good. I thought defensively, I mean, people were getting on me in the fourth quarter saying the team quit. No, man, look at the defensive line. They just ran out of gas. They're starting undrafted players, practice squad level players. This Niner team, it's an abject failure if they don't win the Super Bowl. Like, they're going to have number 1 seed in the NFC. This is the culmination of their entire build. They've got talent everywhere. And the Cardinals were, I would say, for the most part, pretty competitive today with a bottom third, maybe worse, cumulative roster in the NFL. I mean, the Cardinals need a lot of help.
Yeah, I just don't know if this wasn't the game that I can look at and say this is a moral victory. It was still an ass beating.
Somewhere in between, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there were, like, the first drive was rock solid. I love what I saw from Kyler Murray. I love what I saw from Trey McBride. And then James Conner being able to punch it in. But, the pick six sucked. How San Francisco was able to capitalize when they got their offensive opportunities in the first half. And then, of course, the reversal of the big play on special teams. But then in the second half, it was just complete, for the most part, just domination from San Francisco.
I mean, you're telling me
there was blood in the water. I think they were like, okay, let's wrap this division up. And they have the talent to where if they can turn it on. Sorry to keep cutting you off.
No, you're good.
Guys like Trent Williams, George Kittle, Christian McCaffrey, they're like, we're gonna lock this thing up. We're gonna end our day early and get to the locker room and celebrate.
The middle of the Cardinal defense is led by Jonathan Ledbetter, Roy Lopez, Chris Barnes, and Josh Woods. Like, they should be able to fucking run for 5-7 yards per carry when they want to. I try to grade this entire thing on a curve. Like, I'm not gonna sit up here and scream and yell at guys making no money, vet minimums. I'll get on Hollywood Brown, number 1 receiver, on 5th year option, not playing well, like being a non-factor. Right? It's historically why I've had issues. DJ Humphries I thought was solid today. The offensive line I thought was pretty good, especially from a run perspective. Like, I will hold people accountable based on the expectations. This defense, I just have no expectations for them. Like, Dennis Gardeck, Zaven Collins, like, they are average replacement level players, in my opinion. You do not have a cornerstone blue chip edge rusher to be able to get after Brock Purdy. You had no pressure on him, but, like, we expected that. But we also expected, when Kyler Murray came back, to be some fireworks in the air with Hollywood Brown and Rondale Moore. It just hasn't happened.
No, it hasn't. It's like if it rained on that party, right? That fireworks show. It just hasn't. Nothing has happened from either one of those. He's tried to jumpstart Rondale, and it just hasn't gotten it going. And I'm taking a look at the chat. We got some super chats fired up here, Damon. Let's take a look at some of these. Alex saying the wide receiver room is shit, but I'm liking our running back room. Yeah, they ran for over 200 yards today, 234 yards against the second best run defense in the NFL. Sure, that's great. It helps. It's supplemented by a big 49-yard rush by their Mercado, and that was necessary to try to keep this thing close. And James Conner was great again today, 14 carries for 86 yards, over 6 yards a clip, and scored his 27th career rushing touchdown for the Arizona Cardinals. The rush game was not the issue today. Unfortunately, they were playing from so far behind, you couldn't lean on it.
I'm just at the point, you and I talked about this off air, like, the pass game feels broken until the offseason. It just does. Like, you can get points, you can get touchdowns, you can run the football. Cardinals did a great job with that with Joshua Dobbs earlier this year, but, like, robust 300-yard passing games, multiple touchdowns through the air, that feels like, hey, check back in 2024. When we get some new personnel, when Kyler Murray has an opportunity, you would assume and hope, with Drew Petzing to work on this craft. I think they're trying to do so much on the fly. Zach Pascal is not an NFL starting receiver, and he hasn't had much time with Kyler Murray. You can tell there's one player that Kyler Murray feels comfortable with in the passing game. It's his tight end.
Right.
And they look pretty good. It's the point I made an excuse for Kyler at halftime. Like, he's just going to keep throwing to Trey because no one else can get open. He doesn't feel comfortable with anybody else.
Libertarian Sasquatch with 199 super chat. Thank you so much. LS losing MHJ for a win would be malpractice. Are we getting to that point in the season? Yeah, quite possibly. I mean, it's seeming that dire for wide receiver help. I mean, with two picks in the Arizona Cardinals with the Houston Texans somehow squeaking out a win in overtime against the Tennessee Titans, who were at home and at full strength, and the Texans were far from it. That pick only slides down to 17th, so still in the teens, which is good for the Arizona Cardinals. So if they were able to win a football game and they slide down the draft board with their own pick to 4, 5, and they're sitting in striking distance and they miss out on MHJ, but they get a tackle, there's still enough talent at the wide receiver pool to where you can reshape this room. You'd have to do it via free agency. We'll see who becomes available. T. Higgins looked pretty good yesterday, didn't he? Michael Pittman, hopefully he's going to get back on track, but we'll see if their respective organizations even let him hit. But then you got guys like Noah Brown and a second tier of wide receivers that are over 6 feet, that can get separation, that you might be able to look into. It's going to take more than the draft to get this wide receiver core back on track. Maybe even look at if there's anybody on the trade market.
This is the most points allowed by San Francisco, albeit there was a garbage time touchdown. 29 points is the most they've allowed since their Week 10 loss or Week 8 loss to the Bengals when they were on their 3-game skid with no Debo, no Trent Williams. I mean, this is not a no-show performance by the Cardinals, but I think it magnified the areas where they just can't compete right now. Wide receiver, defensive line, and probably CB1. But especially, you got to be able to control the line of scrimmage defensively. They cannot. And then we've talked about the receiver. There is one receiver worth mentioning, and he happens to play tight end. He is our X-Factor player of the game. It's Mr. Trey McBride, sweet baby Trey. 10 catches, 102 yards. Our guy Damon Dog said it was a little bit disrespectful from our friends at BetMGM. We absolutely love them, but they had the over-under for Trey Day. What was it, Damon?
40-something.
49.5.
Yeah, hammer the over for the rest of the year. Because, frankly, what choice do the Cardinals have? Trey is slowly on his way.
So he's got 712 yards receiving on the season.
712? Let me do the math here. This is not good podcasting, but we're going to take 1,000 minus 712, and we're going to divide it by 3. So he needs 96 yards for the per game.
Well, it's crazy. You had 34 years between Arizona Cardinals 100 receiving yard games by a tight end, and then it took Trey McBride just 35 days to have the next one. I mean, he's a special talent, and I encourage you to check out Johnny's latest Johnny on the Spot, where you can check the receipts. It went out on Saturday. He cut it earlier in the week. He was already on. Hey, Trey McBride is the next. One of the next best tight ends in the NFL. Not just for the Arizona Cardinals, because it's been a feudal position since they moved to the desert, since Jackie Smith.
11 targets, 10 catches. How about that catch in the red zone for Kyler Murray going up and getting the football? Be nice to have a wide receiver or two that could help Kyler Murray in that aspect. We're going to talk about Trey McBride and more. But first, again, this post-game show, which we're loving everybody in the chat, by the way. Like this video. Let's get this to over 300 likes if we could. And for fun, let's talk about our friends at Arizona Lottery. Speaking of fun, holiday scratchers from Arizona Lottery make last-minute shopping easy. They make the perfect gift, folks. This is the scratcher for everybody on your list. They start at just $1 with top prizes up to $500,000. You can gift your holiday scratchers to anyone, naughty or nice, assuming they're of age. And again, perfect stocking stuffer. Get out and buy your holiday scratchers today. Find a retailer like our friends at Circle K. They got everything. Cheap gas plus scratchers, or check them out, ArizonaLottery.com. Again, 21 and over. Cardinals would love to get a scratch off and hit on a couple wide receivers, but, wait for that.
I think for every like you give this video, it's another $1 that Monty Ossenfort will spend in the free agent market for a wide receiver. So make sure you like this video. I'm pretty sure that's how it works. It's just like a
direct pipeline.
A fairy gets its wings, an angel gets its wings. That's how we're working here. Or maybe Johnny and Bo get a beer from Four Peaks every like that you drop here, because we love our friends over at Four Peaks, 8th Street in Tempe, the OG woven into the fabric of this great state of Arizona. Four Peaks, been around since 1998, going into their 26 years. And man, what a quarter of a decade it's been. It's tails down, kilts out. And, of course, if we win or lose, we booze with Four Peaks. We love Kilt Lifter, their flagship. They have the #1 rated wheat beer in the great state of Arizona. It's so delicious. The Wow and the Pumpkin Porters continue to flow like wine here in the great state of Arizona. You can get that Pumpkin Porter. The season continues. It's great for the holiday season. Check out their seasonal beers that they have going on. Visit fourpeaks.com/locator, and you'll find your favorite brewery tours and events. Check out at Four Peaks Brew and at Four Peaks Pub on your socials as well. You got to be 21 years or older, but I highly encourage you to go over to Four Peaks in Tempe, enjoy a meal, appetizers, entrees, desserts, and, of course, great beer at Four Peaks.
Let's get to the super chat here. our friend in the chat asking, this is from Alex, what happened with Kyler who went out? $1.99 super chat. Thank you so much, Alex. Looks like he just got hit in the groin. We're still waiting to hear from Howard Balzer, PHNX Cardinals beat reporter, talking to Gannon, talking to Kyler Murray, but it looks like avoided some significant injury to his groin area, was able to come back in the game. I mean, I think Kyler played pretty average today. And I know when I went out and said, he was going to have a big day, I thought he was going to, especially after that first drive that immediately went for 6 for the Cardinals. But right now, this passing game just is going to lead to limitations this year. I've come to that realization. Like, I feel like we need to judge Kyler Murray, fair or not, on points efficiency for this offense, not necessarily Kyler Murray himself putting up 5 touchdowns circa Tennessee week 1 in 2021. Like, I feel like you're going to have to just look at, because the Cardinals had the hardest strength of schedule when Kyler Murray came back. They're going to have one of the hardest in the NFL. You're going to have to look at the offense in terms of total points and yardage and efficiency pre-Kyler and post-Kyler. And if they're significant, which I would imagine that they're going to be, that's something that you can get really excited about because they're going to make upgrades at receiver. Don't just contextualize it and say, well, Dobbs had this and Toon had this and Colt McCoy in the past. It's just like, no. It's an unprecedented situation, Bo. It's a bottom-tier roster with a guy coming off an ACL in a new system, right? And so, fair or not, I'm looking for moral victories, small victories, things to build on. And again, today, like 29 points is not nothing. I've seen this team be shut out, lose 56-0 at Seattle. Like, the Cardinals, they had some progress. They maybe took a step back or two in some areas. But, again, I still feel very confident this team is going to move forward with Kyler Murray at quarterback.
Yeah, I don't think today changes anything. Was it his best performance? No, not by any stretch. I think he wants those throws back, the 2 picks. And he probably felt like there were plays left on the field that he feels this offense could have operated more efficiently. And, Trey McBride, as we talked to him earlier this week on Monday, he basically outlined what they're doing on a week-to-week basis as far as how this is a work in progress.
Yeah.
And if you expected Kyler Murray to come back, I think that, Atlanta was a freak show, that he was able to come back and perform like he did.
Yeah.
But to expect that each and every week against the strength of the schedule in a brand new offense, an offense that is completely different from the one that he was operating his entire NFL career previous to that, with brand new footwork, brand new concepts, and then working with the personnel that he has. If you're expecting him to do that off the ACL injury, I think that you're expecting just a Herculean effort. You're expecting just superhuman play. I don't think any quarterback comes back and really puts up bigger numbers, or the offense looks much better than Kyler is doing right now. I mean, I think the next tier above what this is otherworldly.
Yeah, I think back to Pro Bowl level play. I think you're getting more efficient play than Dobbs, but you're not getting vintage Kyler. And again, I underestimated how bad this receiving core was going to be as the year went on. I thought, especially after the bye, you get right, guys are healthy.
Yeah.
Let's tune it up. Let's cook with gas. Today, I think, barring something unforeseen, this is it the rest of the year. It's going to be Trey and some running backs, and maybe you get a reception here or there. You're not going to win many games like that.
You got to get Michael Wilson going. I think Michael Wilson now has to prove himself. Is hey, can we rely on this guy next season
as a starter?
Can he be somebody that's going to make an impact? Because otherwise, they do have the draft capital, they do have the cap space. But let's be realistic in here. The 49ers are one of the league's best defenses. What Kyler Murray and this offense was able to do against another one of the league's best defenses in Pittsburgh. Has it been uneven? Sure, absolutely. But if you expected something more consistent, I think you're being unrealistic. But I think that this organization, Johnny, and you've got it sourced as far as the relationship between Kyler and at least his coaching staff. But I think this relationship between Kyler and his coaching staff and the front office was they wanted Kyler Murray to couple what they knew about him throughout the rehab process and what they liked about him with the play on the field, and I think he's done that to the extent to where they feel comfortable moving forward with him.
I can tell you definitively, they want to see long-term what this roster looks like with Kyler Murray and better players around him. I think, again, they could conceivably still end up with the first overall pick. We don't know. Yeah. Carolina could win 2 more games, and then that would become very difficult because Caleb Williams is Caleb Williams, but I don't think they have any desire right now to replace Kyler Murray. I think that they feel good about being able to support him into next year, and they definitely view, and we've talked about this, Kyler Murray their best bet to get back to the postseason in 2024.
Let's take a look at this super chat because I've got an easy answer for it. Nick, thank you for a $4.99 super chat. Why do we still make excuses for half-stack Daniel Jones? You don't know ball, Nick. If you think that Daniel Jones is anywhere close to the same caliber quarterback of Kyler Murray, you just don't know ball. If you think Daniel Jones with his 2 touchdowns and his 6 picks and the New York Giants not being able to compete in, Tommy Cutlets and coming in there and being able to operate an offense way better than Daniel Jones, and you're going to lean on a playoff win over a fraudulent Vikings team, go ahead and do that. But if you think that they're the same caliber of quarterback, you're effing crazy. You're out of your mind. The arm talent, the ability to make plays, Kyler Murray is far better than Daniel Jones. It's not even close. Throwing a short joke, too, it just goes to show that you have no evidence to prove that.
Well said. Let's count some cards, shall we? Here's some guys who made some plays today for the Arizona Cardinals despite the loss. James Conner, man, just dust off his contract and pick up his option, even though you don't have to. Make sure James knows on the Monday after the season's over. Hey, James, you'll be back next year at your normal salary. We appreciate you, my guy. 86 rushing yards, 6.1 yards per carry, a touchdown. He and Damari DeMercado. I had Amari on there before the Higgins touchdown. He was great, too. He had a 49-yard touchdown. Great rushing game for the Arizona Cardinals. Higgins, is this guy quickly going to have to become tight end 2 with Jeff Swaim, unfortunately being carted off? Higgins did make some plays today. 4 for 4 with 44 yards receiving on the day.
Yeah.
This is a tight end running back offense right now. I feel good about this core. I feel great about Matt Prater. I had a text with my guy Seth Cox, who's at revengeofthebirds.com, basically asked me, is Prater the greatest Keim signing of all time? I think it's between him and James Conner. Like, whatever Keim was doing that offseason, he was cooking with gas. That offseason where he brought back everybody on a 1-year deal. Matt Prater is a marvel. He and Trey McBride deserve Pro Bowl berths, but these are guys we're counting on into next year. I would expect Conner and Prater to be back. Prater's too fucking valuable. You can't let him go.
Isn't Prater under contract?
Is he? Did he get a 2-year deal this offseason? He's fantastic. James Conner, pay him what he needs to. I mean, James Conner and Michael Carter and Amari DeMercado, listen, those guys ran for over 200 yards today. That's pretty good. Kyler had 49, Michael Carter had 27, but the point remains, the Cardinals, even without a blue chip first-round, second-round back in his mid-20s like Nick Chubb, they can manufacture a run game, and that's Petsy. That's the Kyle Shanahan scheme, and we should feel good about that because if there's something you can hang your hat on after this year is you can see the start of the evolution of this Cardinal offense running the football. And it really depends on, mixing and matching, putting some guys in position to be successful. They can come away every day and say, we can run the football. 234, 7.8 yards per clip against San Francisco. That's great. That's an identity and a formula you can lean on like they did against Pittsburgh. What they have to be able to remedy now is they got to have playmakers to go up and get the football for Kyler Murray. You've got the offensive line, I think, in good shape. Not great. We make some tweaks. Running game looks good. Tight ends are flipping fantastic. We feel good about the quarterback, at least we do, not our guy David in the chat. But the receiving core, that's the big checklist right now.
Yeah.
And it almost feels like everything else has a really good starting point. The receiving core feels like a gut job to me. I was with you. Michael Wilson, I was ready to anoint a starter next year. I don't think you can do that. It was Nick, by the way, not David. I think you have to look at multiple additions in free agency, in the draft. I put this out there I'm ready to have the conversation. If T. Higgins hits the market, if they don't franchise tag T. Higgins, you have to have a content with T. Higgins.
Fire up the PJ, Michael.
And then
fire up the PJ. Get your ass to wherever if it's not Cincinnati, if he's, I don't know, he went to Clemson. Is he in South Carolina somewhere?
Don't let him talk to Isaiah Simmons or DeAndre Hopkins before he comes here. But
look, it doesn't matter. Here's what's going to talk. Monies.
Yeah.
Give him all the monies he needs. He can be the wide receiver that you need. Did you see the plays that he had on Saturday? I want to get back to one point as far as Elijah Higgins, the day that he had. Damian Parson of the Draft Network quote tweeted when I just kind of reported the touchdown from Elijah Higgins. It was his first career tutty. He's a converted wide receiver out of Stanford. He actually had more receiving yards for the Stanford Cardinal last year than Michael Wilson did. And Michael Wilson obviously dealt with some injuries. But look, I think he's a talented kid, and DP or Damian Parsons said that he's a perfect complement for Trey McBride. Trey McBride is like almost the complete package. He does enough for you in the passing game, in the running game, and in the blocking game that, all you need is something to complement him. And I think that Higgins does that. I think he's emerging as a playmaker. Underneath, he's athletic enough with the ball in his hands that he's making plays.
And like even earlier this season when he was having a tough time hanging on the football, he was getting open. Like he's got separation ability, mismatching. Like look what they've done with Trey and Higgins and Michael Wilson when he was cooking. Yeah. They have a type. It's not small. And the Cardinals went all in on small, not at quarterback, but the receiving core with Keim. And it's not working in this offense. That's why, I will go to the ends of the earth. If they bring back Hollywood Brown, it's a huge mistake. Even like a vet minimum deal.
Yep.
What does it give you next year? What are you getting from that? You're getting nothing from that. You're taking away reps from a younger player that could be helping you. You need to go out and get Higgins is over 6 foot. Go out and get Marvin Harrison Jr. We're going to talk about it. 6'4" specimen. Take a mid-round receiver again with one of your 3 threes. Flush this offense with big physical playmakers. You can manufacture yards with big physical guys. You don't need everybody to run a 4-2. Now, Marvin's the anomaly. He's like Trey McBride where, he can do everything, right? But I think we got so infatuated with, hey, Rondale Moore can run a 4-3, and Hollywood Brown's a deep threat. And, no. How about make first downs? Score in the red zone. You want to know why the Cardinals were terrible in the red zone throwing the football? It's because nobody can get open because everybody's small. They can't go up and get the football. They have to gut this receiving core. Well, I think they will.
Yeah, you made a comp earlier this week, and, like I said earlier in the show, you're almost light years away from it. But you've got one of the pieces in place as far as the tight end.
Yeah.
The Niners, they got George Kittle. That was kind of the only weapon.
That was it.
Jimmy G. right?
It was after Anquan was there, and Michael Crabtree was gone, and they had a bunch of just guys. They had a bunch of Jags, just a guy.
And then they go in the second round and they get A.J. Brown out of Ole Miss. And then they trade for a first I'm sorry, the other Ole Miss guy. Yeah. Deebo Samuel. And then they go and they get their guy from ASU in Brandon Ayuk at the end of the first round. Then they supplemented the pass game, and then those guys all complemented each other so unbelievably well. And then of course Christian McCaffrey takes this thing to the next level. But and then Brock Purdy,
he was the bow.
Yeah, he was the guy that was able to kind of stir it all up. So, but I think having Trey McBride, at least being able to say that, and then it is unfortunate that they haven't been able to really say, hey, this is a wide receiver that can make plays for us. I'm kind of surprised that it's deteriorated. It hasn't. You at least could say, okay, Michael Wilson, he's missed 4 games so far.
I think he's hit a rookie wall. I think that's what's happening.
If he's got the time to stay refreshed, that's concern. That's concerning. Like the concern that you had from the jump remains a concern.
He and B.J. Ojulari have kind of switched spots. Like you feel better about B.J. Ojulari, and Paris has been great, and Garrett Williams is playing well. But I like this comment from Ken. I think it's spot on. I think it puts a bow on it. We still have little air raid receivers. That's what it's like. It's like you're putting a round peg in a square hole, or vice versa. They're just not a fit. And they weren't overly productive with Cliff Kingsbury in his old offense. I think you do enough times and it's not working, you switch it up. And I want to see more of what Drew Petzing thinks is a quality NFL receiver, because clearly he's figured out the run game. You can't dispute this. He's unlocked Trey McBride. Give McBride all the flowers and we will. And he was robbed of opportunities with Zach Ertz, respectfully, at the tail end of his career. He's still not signed, by the way, as you pointed out. But Drew Petzing's offense features the tight end. It sure as hell features Trey McBride. Now go out. You got to find your Amari Cooper that he had in Cleveland last year. That esque type of, and then certainly in San Francisco. And those guys you find in the draft, and on occasion you get one in free agency. So let's get back to some of these super chats because you guys are crushing it. Like this video. Let's get to 300 likes while we're live. That'd be awesome. Topic 64, $4.99, friend of the program. The only thing I'm sure of is that McBride and Higgins would be a great tall receivers. Absolutely. And I see a lot of people pushing back Higgins isn't a number 1. Okay. He's a high-end number 2, and then maybe if you found another high-end number 2, is Trey McBride your number 1?
How many teams deploy 2 rock-solid tight ends? It hasn't happened since the New England Patriots had Gronk and Hernandez, and that might have been the only duo truly.
Oh, he's talking about Elijah Higgins. My bad.
Yeah. But, I mean, what he's saying is he likes Trey McBride as tight end 1, and then what Higgins provides as a complement as a tight end 2. And he's a pass-catching guy. He's going to be, because he's a converted wide receiver, it's still going to take him time. We don't even know if he'll ever be able to be a complete tight end, and that's fine. He's not your tight end 1. And then if
just a weapon.
if you were able to get 2 wide receivers, and I think I saw Jessica in the chat saying Higgins and Marvin Harrison Jr. chef's kiss, like, of course, but it still doesn't solve all the issues of this team.
But they have the money and they have the draft cap. They could easily do that. Like, we're not going to sit here and say it's a pipe dream. Let's get to this next super chat. Nazaire 499, thank you so much. How can anyone question K1 is insane? He just put up 29 points on the best team in the league. Get him some help. Drew can get creative, or has got to get creative. I agree with that. That's the point I made. I think, again, like, if you're the quarterback of this offense, you get credit for putting up damn near 30 points against San Francisco. I'll give you immense credit for that. You turned the ball over twice, inexcusable. He'll say that. You got to fix that. But again, like, did people expect the Cardinals to win this game?
Let me ask you this: who had the worst game today for the Cardinals?
Across the board,
the wide receivers, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Who else? Who else deserves criticism for this game?
I think that. I
think Nick Rawls deserves some criticism.
Wasn't his best in the second half.
The 3rd and 11 still makes me upset.
With like Buddha fake blitzing?
Yeah. What was that? It was some in-between. Buddha showed blitz, and then halfway after the snap, he drops on Kittle, who's just running wide open for a huge play. If they get off the field there, it can completely change the complexion of that game.
If they get the fumble return that was reversed, if they get the fumble that Buda Baker picked up and ran with, like, the Cardinals had some tough breaks go their way, and somebody pointed this out, like, a team that's 3-10 versus the darlings of the NFL, you're not going to get calls like that. You got to earn that with winning, right? And you got to earn that with respect and a resume, and it's not fair, but it's the reality of the NFL, and a lot of teams go through it. And the Cardinals are really going through it right now. But at the end of the day, like, a couple things really positive you can take away from this game is, like, you feel like you've got some building blocks that are young on your roster that can help you translate into next season and get you to the playoffs. Like Kyler Murray and Trey McBride and James Conner and Paris Johnson Jr., some of these key defenders can help you get to the postseason, get you to 9 to 10 wins next year. You just have to have a good offseason. Like, it would have been terrible. Kyler Murray gets knocked out of the game, never returned. We're having a completely different conversation today. Would have been terrible if Trey McBride had went to the locker room and never came back. Yeah. Both those guys came back against the toughest shit Niner defense.
How about Kyler?
Yeah, both of them came back.
Yeah, Kyler, he had the below the belt.
Right.
Hate to even joke about that. That's brutal. But
we've all been there. Not from an NFL player, but
and to get it from an NFL player, that's tough. Several of you saying the secondary in the chat, and I agree. The secondary, it was a tough look.
I mean, they're starting undrafted players, they're starting rookies, they're starting six-rounders.
Thomas had a tough start. You had Antonio Hamilton who came out. He was flying around, and then he became a bit of a liability out there. I didn't like some of the calls on Hamilton and on the defensive line. But yeah, the secondary, it's going to continue to struggle. I'm going to have to rewatch the film, see what kind of day Keitrell Clark had. I didn't really see him.
I mean, guys were wide open. Come on. A lot of these players will not be on the team after these next 3 games. Like, the cornerstone players on this team, I thought played fine today. Fine to good. I'm not going to get broken up about guys who are practice squad level players that didn't play well against the best team in the NFL. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say, you know what, Roy Lopez, you just got to be better. No, Roy Lopez was available and was cut, and he's a starting NFL defensive lineman. That shouldn't be. He's a practice squad level player. Chris Barnes and Josh Woods are backups. They're nice guys, but they're backups. And you're going to ask them to take on Trent Williams when he's pulling and Christian McCaffrey in space? What are we doing? They lost Kazir White. They lost about 4 defensive linemen on a team everybody already projected to be the worst in the NFL.
Yeah.
Like, you're wasting your breath. Like, you want to criticize Kyler Murray? I get that. Albeit I think it's unfair because he's off a torn ACL in a new system, but you do you. Hollywood Brown, number 1 receiver, not a factor, right? You want to critique these guys making big money with big expectations, do that. But it's like we're yelling into the wind on some of this stuff. Come on. Like, the Niners are unequivocally the best roster in the NFL.
This is how tough the wide receiver court. This is how bad we're down. BKSD TV saying 2021 AJ Green has me. It was higher than that in the chat there, Damon. Yeah, AJ Green was like Jerry Rice compared to this crew.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the guy who caused so much frustration with this fan base by not turning around in that big game against the Packers. But everybody having some fun with it. That's why you're all the best. Let's see. Humble Rumber 49ers got Bosa, Young, Warner, Ward. Yeah, they've got a stacked lineup on both sides of the football. And then we've got some super chats here. Alex chiming back in. $4.99 super chat. Thank you so much, Alex. Our offense is looking like KC superstar TE underwhelming receivers. The current iteration of the Chiefs, who are struggling, they're still far away from that, right? And Kyler Murray's still got a lot to prove at the quarterback position to even sniff what Patrick Mahomes is doing. I think the off-schedule stuff will start to come once he's able to work kind of between the lines of this offense. And I still think, they've got to do that in the next 3 games. Like, is encouraged by you can be by 29 points. And I still think that there was too many poor plays. I think that they still have, the next 3 games that they need to get back on schedule, play within the offense, limit the turnovers, and continue to show progress. Like the progress they showed against Pittsburgh. And like sometimes when you get the Kyler haters in the chat, you get off base because you have to come to the defense of it. But it's the reality still remains. Like you want to see progress from this offense. So you've seen the Falcons, which you're 1 up, right? And then the next game against the Texans, you're down 1, so you're even. And then the next game against the Rams, you're down -1. And then you get back up to even with a performance against the Steelers. Now you're probably down 1 again. So I think you have to have a rebound performance.
I mean, all the teams you just mentioned are either playoff teams or on the cusp of making the playoffs that the Cardinals have lost to. Does anybody think the Cardinals are a playoff team?
Yeah, 2-3 with Kyler back.
I mean, with a very limited roster. You don't have to be limited with our friends at Desert Financial Credit Union, the official credit union of our Arizona Cardinals. For more than 84 years, Desert Financial has been Arizona's largest, most trusted local credit union, dedicated to creating exceptional experiences by giving back to the community and providing financial solutions that make lives better. Look for Desert Financial for checking, savings accounts, mortgages, loans, credit cards, investment options, and more. Again, represent the Red Sea. It's tough today, but rep them regardless with the Arizona Cardinal Visa debit card. I've done it online. You can too. It takes like 10 minutes. Open a free checking account. Your debit card's going to be in the mail. Get you in a couple days later. Go to desertfinancial.com/Cardinals to get started.
I was so fortunate enough to make it out to one of these home game watch parties out here at Gila River Resorts and Casinos. This place is unbelievable. It's the best casino in the Valley of the Sun. It's not even close. The giant TVs that they have that you can watch off the balcony up here from the sports book, it's unreal. The attention to detail from the table games down on the floor to those TVs to the service staff here to the bay here where you can hit golf balls, just throw passes like you're Kyler Murray, from the shotgun. Gila River Resorts and Casinos is the real deal, no doubt about it. Nobody does it better. Next home game, I guarantee you I'm going to be sitting back in the press box at State Farm Stadium, but I'm so fortunate to get out here. Got to meet up with a bunch of great Arizona Cardinals fans who wish they could have seen a dub, but they had a blast with us. They got some free T-shirts. They had some great times. They had a lot of beers, and they had a lot of great food. Come join us on the final home watch party of the year in the regular season finale at the beginning of January right here at Gila River Resorts and Casino. Visit playGila.com for more details.
Speaking of our friends at Desert Financial, let's count some numbers. Open this with the Arizona Cardinals losing to the 49ers 45-29. Again, this is by our friends at Desert Financial Credit Union. By the numbers, check them out, desertfinancialcreditunion.com. Cardinals had more total yards than San Francisco, 436-406. That yards per play, though, stark difference. Niners almost doubled up Arizona, 9.4 to 4.8. Then those 2 turnovers. I mean, the Niners had 2 turnovers that were wiped away by the officiating crew. Cardinals had those 2 picks by Kyler Murray. And then, of course, I thought the Cardinal offensive line was good today, despite 3 sacks. I thought those were coverage sacks. And then on the flip side, like we talked about, Cardinals not generating enough pressure. Like, the Cardinals didn't make the Niners uncomfortable today. I think that's what this reflects, outside of the total yards.
Yeah, Brock Purdy, I think, took 1 shot, knocked him out of the game. and that wasn't enough. Otherwise, it was this front seven. I don't know what they were doing. They were just out there running plays and getting absorbed, hats on hats from the San Francisco 49ers offensive linemen. A credit to them, one of the best groups in the league, and they're led by probably the best player still in the NFL at his age, and Trey Williams still just moving people around. And we talk about places we need to address, and I love people in the chat. My God, everybody talking about the draft capital, the 11 picks that they have right now, the cap space, already hovering around $70 million. That's with Kyler Murray's extension kicking in next year. James Conner on the books.
Yeah.
The Arizona Cardinals offseason is going to be a blast. And somebody's saying if they're not aggressive this upcoming offseason, yeah, that's going to be truly disappointing. They can't have the status quo from the previous two off seasons where you and I are sitting here waiting to fire up an emergency podcast, but instead we're twiddling our thumbs.
Yeah, you just have to spend money. Like everybody has the same amount of money to spend. And the Cardinals, like I see a lot of people saying, well, Michael Bidwill's cheap. And certainly that's true for a lot of the unfortunate situations that the players encounter or previously have based on the NFLPA grades. But Steve Keim used to bleed this salary cap dry. I mean, the Cardinals were one of the most active teams in free agency, in part because Steve couldn't draft very well.
Right.
But it's not like they were ever just hanging on to like $75, $100 million in cap space. They will spend this offseason. I see somebody in the chat basically saying, like, I'd be fired up, super chat, if we get Marvin Harrison Jr. But regardless, I'm excited, as Ron says, for the offseason. I appreciate the super chat, and I agree. Like, let's talk about that, Marvin Harrison Jr., because the Cardinals are 3 games away from Marvin Harrison Jr. I can tell you unequivocally, like, the quarterback situation, unless Kyler completely falls apart, K1's going to be your quarterback. If they have the second or third pick, like, they're going to be in a position to take Marvin Harrison Jr. I think they would take Marvin Harrison Jr. over trading back for a quarterback, like situation, somebody coming up to get a quarterback. I still think the Cardinals right now, if you had to ask me today, I think New England loses out. Panthers are not going to win another game. And then the Cardinals potentially could win one more. If the Cardinals win one more game, though, it's going to be difficult with how the Commanders are playing right now. That look a little bit lifeless, moving from 3 to 4. In your opinion, Bo, if the Cardinals beat the Bears, if they somehow beat the Eagles, or if they beat the Seattle Seahawks at home, are you of the opinion that is detrimental to the long-term health of this team, given the fact that they would subsequently lose out on Marvin Harrison Jr.?
I think you're just looking for positive performances at this point. And if it comes with a win, that's I guess kind of a casualty I think you're willing to absorb.
Yeah.
Obviously, you want to get and I love this graphic, seeing a big number 18 there, because he would be an immediate part of the solution for what you're looking for in the lack of productivity from the wide receiver core. But it's not the only option to get better at wide receiver. I mean, even in the draft, when you look at it, like it goes as 5 deep as far as first round caliber wide receivers, and next on the board is Malik Neighbors, Rome Odunze from Washington. You're going to watch him play in the college football playoff semifinals. Keon Coleman, later round. Jaron Polk also playing at Washington. Troy Franklin from Oregon. Johnny Wilson, who's going to be at the Senior Bowl in Mobile. Brendan Rice from USC. His dad's pretty good at football. He's a little bit bigger than his dad, Jerry Rice. 6'3" out of USC. They all fit the mold. And then there's the free agent guys, as I mentioned, Pittman, Higgins, Calvin Ridley, Gabe Davis, Noah Brown, Tyler Boyd.
Yeah.
Any of those guys can help your wide receiver core. They're options. You got many of them. And those are guys that aren't under contract, and there's always the surprise sometimes where they become cap casualties. Somebody doesn't fit. Who knows what the trade market looks like? There's going to be opportunities to upgrade.
I agree with everything you just said. You articulated it very well. You painted a picture that we might have to face that reality where you get a Joe Alt and somebody else in the first round. I'm okay with that. But I also feel like Cardinal fans deserve Marvin Harrison Jr. I think we've gone through a disastrous 2-year stretch of watching a team maybe compete this year, not win many football games. You should be rewarded with the best player in college football. If you have a belief in Kyler Murray, which the franchise does, go get the best player in the draft. You're not in a position, if you're the Arizona Cardinals, certainly at receiver, to pass on the best player in the draft. The Commanders are your biggest threat right now to potentially, with a gut job coming, steal Marvin Harrison Jr. Now, they play the Jets next week, as people point out in the chat. That's in New York, but that's not a far travel game. Like, let's see if Sam Howell and the early slate can do that.
Yeah.
They also play Dallas the last week of the season. Dallas loses today. If Dallas is in a position where they can't win the division on January 7th, do the Dallas Cowboys, knowing they have to play the next week, sit players. I think there's a possibility of that they could be sitting players ahead of the wild card round. So I'm not ready to say the Commanders are completely done, but they are the realistic, option to potentially steal. Because what happened that was important today that we watched, we're not going to talk about what happened in Houston. That was depressing with the Titans in Tennessee. But the Chicago Bears took an L today. And for the better part of 2 weeks, we had to hear from our friends at CHGO, Chicago Bear fans, that they're going to take Marvin Harrison Jr. first overall.
Right.
The fuck you are. Your quarterback can't complete passes. He was under 50%. Two interceptions today. I like Justin Fields. Eberflus fired. Ryan Poles potentially fired. You think they're going to saddle another head coach GM combination like Jim Harbaugh with Justin Fields? So I do think the Bears might take a receiver. Who knows? They're not taking – you told me before the show. It would be classic Bears incompetence fashion, as much as we love Marvin, to pass on a Caleb Williams and not replace Justin Fields and add just another receiver to the fold.
Yeah, it would be a tough sell. I mean, it's going to be a polarizing decision no matter what they do, right?
Yeah.
I mean, because there is like what the quarterback we have in our own backyard, polarizing nonetheless, and Justin Fields certainly is that. You see the skill set, but you don't see it translating into a lot of wins on the football field for Chicago, and they're at a crossroads, right?
Yeah.
They're going to have to make a decision on his fifth-year option. They're going to just need to make a decision on if he's the guy moving forward with, or do they pivot off for a Caleb Williams or even enter into the conversation a Drake May, the two quarterbacks that are going to be in the conversation. So if they make this late surge, we'll call it, right, a fraudulent win over the Vikings with 4 picks from Joshua Dobbs and no touchdowns, and Joe Flacco, despite throwing 3 interceptions, my God, those are 2 games where they were aided by 7 turnovers from the starting quarterback.
Couldn't get it done.
They either squeaked by or just couldn't get it done like today. Joe Flacco made enough throws down the stretch for Cleveland when Justin Fields, you can't say the same for that.
You think Kyler Murray would have fun with DJ Moore? I do. They got DJ Moore, Cole Kmet. I know Mooney dropped a touchdown. He's competent. So Justin Fields has won 9 games in his NFL career. Kyler Murray has won 22% of that this year. He's won 2 games. That's 22% of Justin Fields' career wins in 3 years in the NFL. So, I mean, he's a solid player.
Yeah.
He's not worth passing on a franchise quarterback at the top of the draft if you're a new regime. Let's get back to these super chats.
Let's do it.
Damon Dog, if we could. Ben Cork, $5. Thank you so much, Ben. Higgins has put up a few big plays over the last few games. He has put on some NFL weight and step up in the blocking game, and we have a cheap rookie tight end too. Absolutely. He was a 6th-rounder for a reason. The Cardinals used, I think, their top waiver claim before the season started to bring him in, and they said, Ben, we've had a chance to connect with the team, like, Trey, the biggest gap for him to start this year was the blocking piece. And I think that's probably what they'll do this offseason is really work with Higgins on that, because you have your 2 tight ends, in my opinion, for next year. Like Jeff Swaim, unfortunately, looks like a serious injury.
Yeah.
I hope I'm wrong. And then Trey McBride, Zach Ertz is obviously gone. Like, I think you feel pretty good about the tight end historically has been awful for Arizona. Now it's like one of your strongest positions. Certainly one of your youngest, more athletic groups.
Yeah.
So I agree with you, Ben.
Well, even with the unfortunate injury to Swaim, who I think his contributions have transcended even the playing field.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're very high on Swaim, and they couldn't believe that Monty Ossenfort was able to get him on the roster before the start of the season. Now, you might scoff at that and say, what's he done? What's his production been? But, now it gives another opportunity to another rookie. I think Blake Whitehart probably, who was inactive, who's had a couple strings of healthy inactive games, I think he now gets his shot, right? And I think that your 3 tight ends are going to be a second-year player in Trey McBride and 2 rookies in Elijah Higgins and Blake Whitehart. Not too bad. You're going to get to see what these guys are made of.
Not too bad. We've got almost 100 likes. Get this to 300. You guys do that for us. Dan T, back-to-back super chats, $2.
Thank you, Dan.
More excuses made for Kyler Murray, followed by Kyler not a $1.4 billion quarterback. Dan, I think you're going to be disappointed, man. I feel pretty confident they're going to roll with Kyler Murray next year.
This is what I know, what Dan knows about the quarterback position. He was coming after us for saying that Clayton Tune was not going to have a good game against Cleveland. He said we were too harsh on Clayton Tune. Clayton Tune had a performance that dated back before the evolution of the forward pass, Dan. And to say that he's not a $250 million quarterback, you're getting overwhelmed by the price tag of what it costs to pay a quarterback these days. That's just the cost of doing business in the NFL.
And it's not even a high cost. It's going to be like bottom of the top 10. And Kyler Murray, I think, is going to be a top 10 quarterback next year. Jalen Blair, $5 super chat. Underrated thing about finishing third is our staff will get to coach the Senior Bowl. How about it? Since the Panthers will have new coach, will be greatly beneficial, and the Patriots.
That's an interesting. I like that, Jalen.
Excellent,
That's
Jalen.
awesome.
That's called added value, Jalen. Kudos to you. PR Mac, $5.
Imagine what those juniors and seniors are gonna find out about Nick Rollis and Drew Petzing and Israel Wolfwork, and does Jonathan Gannon get mixed up in it? It's usually coordinators. It's usually not a head coach.
I think he's there. I think the head coach is there.
Because I'm thinking
At
back
the
to last
Bowl.
The Raiders had their defensive coordinators, the head coach, and then the Bears had.
Really?
I don't think Eberflus coached.
They're there though. They're there hanging out. They're contributing.
You could bet your ass he's going to be there.
Yeah.
He's got a scouting background, and Monty and Dave Sears, who are all stars in the front office, are going to be.
They might head to the Reese's Senior Bowl like the day after the season's over. Just put
put
up
roots
shop.
down?
Yeah. PR Mac, $5. Yes, I agree. We need 2 wide receivers. We can draft them. I also like Troy Franklin. Absolutely. He's fantastic with the Ducks. Marvin Harrison Jr. We need Brian Burns. Bona fide rush upgrade. Let's go, Monty. We've talked about this before.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to spend in free agency, and I think a lot of it's going to be dictated, obviously, on, like, do the other teams franchise these players? Do they have an interest in playing in Arizona? I can just tell you, like, unequivocally, the position I've heard that they view as, like, the most likely to spend big money on is a cornerback, like a number 1 corner. Part of that is I think this draft class is solid, doesn't have a true number 1 that's worthy of a top 5 selection. And also, they've got young corners that they like. They need a veteran. But, again, that was before the house is burned down at the wide receiving core, and that might force the issue. Yeah. Like, I'm just telling you right now, like, the cornerback room has not been good. It's been better since Keitrell Clark's been entering the lineup. Like, the wide receiver, like, you can't operate an NFL offense like this.
Yeah. Soul Pancakes. Bo will stand by Kyler if Kyler throws 10 picks in a game and blame the rest of them. Yeah, because that's happened before. Kyler Murray's come close to being a turnover machine like that. I blamed him for the 2 picks today. Soul Pancakes, I recognize your name from social media, buddy. How's Isaiah Simmons playing in New York, bud? How's he doing? Is he making an impact there, or is it on the organization again? I don't even know what.
We appreciate the view, Soul Pancakes. Drop us a like, would you? You guys are fantastic today.
Chase coming to my defense. Knock it off. He wouldn't. Sensible Bo has reasonable takes. No cap. Thank you, Chase. We appreciate that.
Can we check out Monty Ossenford's smiling head? Or not so smiling head. The Texans Tracker via our friends at the Arizona Lottery.
We nearly had another one today.
I hate that so much. I jinxed it. I said, I thought they were going to blow them out. It's 13-0. Wasn't competitive. I was cruising into Gila River. I'm like, hell yeah. let's get this going, baby. And then they blew it. Give credit. D'Amico Ryans is fantastic. Let's give him credit. It's going to be a good pick regardless because it's in the first round. But, yeah, the pipe dream of it being top 10 again, I think that was wishful thinking on my part.
It was going to be a stretch anyway. I mean, this is a cakewalk schedule. And, you know, this was the opportunity, the door coming back open without C.J. Stroud, without Will Anderson Jr., and the Titans fumbled the bag.
Nico Collins, Tank Dell, Vrabel, that's embarrassing. I would be embarrassed today. Like, I think Vrabel's a top 10 coach, but, like, if you're a Titan fan today, that you got Will Levis and you're talking yourselves into that's your QB1 next year. He looked awful today. Yeah. You got abused by D'Amico Ryans. D'Amico Ryans is a fantastic, like, the Niners are great. They miss D'Amico Ryans still. Like D'Amico Ryans doesn't allow the Cardinals to run for 250 yards today. Like he's a generational quarterback or a defensive coordinator prospect turned NFL head coach. So congratulations to Houston. That's disappointing. I'm going to tell you what's not disappointing. Our friends at BetMGM, $1,500 first bet offer. Sunday night game tonight. You want to dabble on it? Do it with our friends at BetMGM. Bonus code PHNX. Download the BetMGM Sportsbook app or check them out, BetMGM.com. My picks today, I think I did pretty well. Damon Dog, would you care to share with the viewers Johnny's picks from the pregame show? You don't have to pull it up. You just tell them because I was hot, baby. I said the over would hit, Deebo Samuel ×2. There it is. And then Marquise Hollywood Brown, we're going to ignore that. For 2 for 3. and you know what? The big one hit. You could have gotten that plus 600 before the game. I told you that was hitting.
It's over 4 units. Profit right there.
I've seen this team get their ass beat by the Niners enough to know who's going to do it, when and how. But if you want to dabble, like I did, with BetMGM, just sign up using that bonus code PHNX. Place your first BetMGM Sportsbook wager through the app itself. You got to at least deposit at least $10. If that bet loses, your bonus bets will be available once your initial wager is settled. So if you lose, you get it back. Just be patient. Check out the show notes for full details. And now listen to my guy, I miss him every day, Shane Diefenbach, talk about it in the disclaimer.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Colorado, D.C., Illinois, Indiana, Kansas, Louisiana, Maryland, Mississippi, New Jersey, Nevada, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, Wyoming. Call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369 New York. Call 1-800-327-5050 Massachusetts. 21 plus to wager. Please gamble responsibly. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP Arizona. 1-800-BETS-OFF Iowa. 1-800-270-7117 for confidential help Michigan. 1-800-981-0023 Puerto Rico in partnership with Kansas Crossing Casino and Hotel. Visit BetMGM.com for terms and conditions. U.S. promotional offers not available in D.C., New York, or Ontario.
Got about, 7 shopping days till Christmas? Let me knock off a couple of the presents you have to buy with our friends over at OG's Brands at ogsbrands.com. Unwrap the merry, bright, downright delicious gift of OG's gummies this holiday season, whether you're gifting a friend or treating yourself or making your holiday party a little bit more interesting. You can find it over at our friends over at OG's. From the lightweight, friendly mini OGs to the heavy-hitting pegs, RSO, they have something for everyone on this year's nice lift. You have to check it out. Of course, a variety of bold flavors. OG's gummies are slam dunk for your taste buds. Plus, you can customize your experience based on the desired effect and strength. To learn more about OG's, check out their website, ogsbrands.com. Check them out in your local dispensary. They're all around the Valley of the Sun. Got to be 21 years or older.
So as we, put a bow on today, as we look ahead
can I point out one more just Hall of Fame hypocrisy from our guy Soul Fang Pancakes? He's saying it's funny you expect a player who got traded a week before the season that starts the team to already establish the defense. Go check the PFF on Isaiah and talk to me when he's talk about making excuses for a player. Get out of here with that.
Isaiah Simmons is going to be out of football in about 3 days, bro.
He had 2 tackles today. Check out his PFF grade. What's his impact to the game?
The Giants are a bad team.
Let's go to somebody.
He's a bad player on a bad team. Like Cardinals have plenty of those. You want some bad players on a bad team? Marco Wilson plays for the Cardinals. We don't talk about him every 2 seconds. Jay, Super Chat, $5. I appreciate the passion from you two. It's made it this unbearable season watchable. Thank you, Go Cards. We appreciate you, Chase. Thank you so much for the $5 Super Chat. And listen, I welcome a difference of opinion. I've got people on Twitter constantly. Some of them are a little bit more relevant, and some of them are irrelevant in my mentions, talking about, fanboy this. And, listen, you guys come up. Everybody's going to be testy. They're 3-11. They're not very good. They haven't won a bunch of games. But we can only give you our honest opinion. Yeah. You're with the team every day. We talk to people within, the sources within the organization are close to the team. And, they still believe in Kyler Murray. They want Kyler Murray to be the guy. They think he can be the guy. And we just happen to agree with that. Right. If I didn't agree with that, I'd come up and say that's the wrong decision. Like we told you all offseason. They believe Colt McCoy was good for them to start the year. We were like, that's fucking dumb. Don't do that. And it bit them in the ass. And then I can be wrong about Trey McBride. I didn't like the draft pick when they drafted him. Listen, you just at the end of the day, it's just let's be objective here. Kyler Murray is a top 10 quarterback when he's healthy. And he had a failing college head coach and a general manager that was poisoning this franchise, holding him back. And he got to the playoffs in a division with Sean McVay, Pete Carroll, and Kyle Shanahan. And so, I'm sorry if they just don't want to throw that out when you could draft Drake May and he could be fucking Bryce Young. You don't know. Nobody knows this. There's a good chance that either Caleb Williams or Drake May underperforms as an NFL player. The way history has shown you, one of those guys is going to hit, one of those guys is going to be a bust. That's just how you would rather go into next year knowing Kyler Murray at 26 is bought in and can get you to the playoffs. This team is potentially going to go 0-6 in the division. They're going to have 3 or 4 wins to their credit, and then they got to go through all next year, and they're going to try to acclimate a young quarterback and blah. No, they're going to try to win games to keep their jobs long term. And I'm not saying their jobs are in jeopardy, but it's if you're Jonathan Gannon, do you want to be like, oh yeah, let me introduce Caleb Williams and Drake May to the NFC West, and then subsequently that pick then doesn't become an immediate impact player like Marvin Harrison Jr. or Fashino or Joe Alt or whomever you want to select there. So you're immediately removing that. But you've seen Kyler Murray do it before, and they see it in practice every day. That's the difference between, Justin Fields has never done at the NFL level. Kyler Murray has. We know he has, and he was held back by his franchise.
Piece of Yoshi, thank you for the $2 Super Chat. Trade for Hendon Hooker from the Detroit Lions. If you're looking for a backup quarterback, sure, you can do that. But Hendon Hooker's 25 years old. He's going to have 3 years left on his deal. What's the value in that? He's 1 year younger than Kyler Murray. He's a rookie coming off an ACL tear from last season. He hasn't played an NFL down yet. If you think he's got maybe a higher upside as a backup quarterback than Clayton Tune, then I think that might be a good option. But
yeah, I think the backup job's up for grabs this offseason, though. I don't think Clayton Tune's got a lockstep, stranglehold in this job.
Yeah.
You've gotten enough from this rookie class. Like, Clayton Tune makes the team next year, great. But if there's a chance to upgrade, you go out and you upgrade. But we'll see. I think there's an option. I draft a quarterback every year in the later rounds. Don't use a premium pick on one. If they want to use a 5th or a 6th rounder on a quarterback, I have no problem with that. But I think this offseason is going to be all about helping Jonathan Gannon and Nick Rallis' defense and helping Kyler Murray's offense. That's what it should be. Because you've got some bright spots, some building blocks. The Niners are so far ahead of you from a personnel standpoint. I can't even judge Jonathan Gannon yet. Like, I think he's doing a good job. I like what he does. I think the effort's there.
There's steps to this.
He's
right?
out-coached Mike Tomlin.
Yeah. I mean, there are steps to this, right? And what we've learned about, let's start with Monty Ossenfort.
Yeah.
This offseason, and he can tear down what was left of a bad-built roster, a poorly built roster, right? And then the next step is taking the salary that he's created in the cap space and then the draft capital and seeing if he can turn it into build his own roster.
Yeah.
I mean, that's going to be the next step for Monty Ossenfort. So far, step one, I think he succeeded as far as that.
Yeah.
But like Cliff Kingsbury,
not without mistakes,
who was able to get better and better each and every season once the league started to adjust and then, the expectations set in, he folded, right? And like year one, Cliff, I think, succeeded. Year two, they took the next step. Year three, they took the next step, and then progress stopped. Jonathan Gannon, like, I think he you've seen progress as far as the culture change, but then with a better roster, it's going to become different expectations as far as, okay, it's not about wins and losses this year. The next season, it's probably going to be more about wins and losses. How is he going to do within that game? Like, you're right. Like, we really haven't truly been able to judge him based on, like, going for it on 4th down as much as he does, or the decision to go for it with two, because the pressures of winning those football games isn't nearly as high. So it's going to be interesting to see how he responds.
And, like, I might be being naive here, and I agree with everything you just said. Like, I have never seen a teardown like this Cardinal roster is experiencing in my adult life. Like, they've had bad teams. Like, 2018 was a bad team, but that was led by, I think, not a great head coach and a bad quarterback. A couple bad quarterbacks that torpedoed that team that had some talent on it. Like, I've seen losing teams with Ken Wisenhunt and, some of these other coaches that they've had historically, but at the end of the day, it's like they've had talent despite having, a top 5 draft pick. This is the worst roster at key positions that I can remember. Like, no impact D tackle, edge rusher, cornerback. You're starting backup linebackers. You've got big time problems at a lot of these key spots. So I'm grading this on a curve. I'm sorry. Like, I'm not sitting here expecting this team to win like 6 in a row. I'm not expecting this team, like the NFC West, don't get it twisted. It's still a top 3 to 5, if not higher, division in the NFL. 3 Hall of Fame level coaches, right? Shanahan, if he wins the Super Bowl this year, is going to Hall of Fame. McVay's probably going, and Pete Carroll's going. Mm-hmm. That's your competition every year. Like, so you better be up to, like, that's their competition. And then they're playing, I don't know, the AFC North, which is maybe the best division in football this year. They have the second hardest strength of schedule right now, according to Tankathon, and they have the worst roster. Like, if you asked a casual NFL fan to name 5 defenders for the Arizona Cardinals, they couldn't do it. 3 defenders, maybe. Like, that is what it is at the end of the day. People think Hollywood Brown's like their best player. He doesn't even provide any impact. So I do think, like, listen, it was self-inflicted. They did this. They could have kept everybody. I mean, you could have signed players in free agency.
You've got PFF, and they're very knowledgeable, right? And they take into several variables. But to say that Hollywood Brown at this stage in the season and going in the offseason that they projected him as a franchise tag guy, it was 18th, so far off base.
18th free agent.
Yeah. It's just so far off base, like, based on the last quarter of the season. Since the return of Kyler Murray, like, we just haven't seen Hollywood Brown prove that he's the 18th best free agent and that he's worthy of $21 million franchise. Like, it's so far off from, what we've been seeing here locally.
Nick, we appreciate this. My guy, $4.99. Love you guys. The short stack Daniel Jones comment was post-game frustration. Off season will be fun. The podcast is like therapy. We appreciate
you, Nick.
And
I apologize on my behalf for that.
Listen, it gets heated.
That was me just coming back to with post-game frustration.
Poor Nick, he's a good guy.
He
Bo.
is. He is.
You
God
went
damn
after
it,
this
Bo.
guy's throat.
I know. I have a tough time looking at myself in the mirror every night.
Yeah, listen. This is a good guy right here. Times are tough for this team and the fan base. Listen, you guys deserve better than this. Hopefully, this podcast has been able to provide a little bit of, I don't know, therapy, as you put it, just a place for everybody, no matter your opinion of this team, even if we disagree.
If Nick is anti-Kyler, like at the end of the day, even post 45-29 loss, like we respect that. Come here and voice your frustration, no doubt about it. But we're going to have a respectful conversation about it and have some fun around it too. So I love that Nick is coming in and voicing how he is, but the fact that we can all say what we want and also hold people accountable for it.
Listen, this is the franchise has the longest Super Bowl drought in professional sports, the longest championship drought. Like you're a Cardinal fan, you know what you're getting into.
Yeah.
You're thick-skinned. Everybody in this chat right now has the thickest of the thick-skinned as it relates to the team that they choose, and I wouldn't pick any other team. Like we're ride or die with this team. And I think you're about to be rewarded for your patience this offseason.
We've got a couple. So Howard Balzer, who was in the post-game press conference, I was looking for some quotes. Gannon, he talked about Hollywood Brown, and he said, quote, "I'm concerned. He's tough as hell. He wants to play. He's trying to grind through. He's a warrior. We need him, but if he can't go, he can't go." So the heel apparently acted up again, and that's why you saw him sideline the rest of the game.
Shut him down.
Yeah.
I just – he's taking away reps from guys, and like who are you even going to play? I guess, but like Michael Wilson, Greg Dortch need to start against Chicago. Like and Elijah Higgins and Trey McBride underneath, and Rondell Moore mixed in. Like I'm at the point where I think I'm done seeing Hollywood Brown as a wide receiver for this franchise. He is a war. I give him credit. He's trying to play. I'm never going to. But like these are professional athletes. These aren't kids. They're getting paid a premium. Like if you can't produce, get out of the lineup.
Yeah.
Because today it was not even replacement level play from our receivers. You hurt the team today.
Kyler Murray on the 2 picks that he threw, put him on himself. He said they're on me, but said, "I think we moved the ball today against a great defense."
I agree with that.
McBride saying, quote, "We're close, but we're close. We're really close." Kyler frustrated for Hollywood Brown and said his health is most important. And then going back to a quote from Trey McBride, quote, "We played really good football team and we were right there." He said, "I feel right now I'm in the zone." And Trey McBride, another 100-yard performance from the tight end in a setback for the Cardinals.
I think, again, you and I disagreed at the top of the show. I think there are some good takeaways for the Cardinals. It's not a moral victory, although you read those comments and they may be taking that as a moral victory. I mean, the Niners are a fucking juggernaut. They're unbelievable. So I think at the end of the day, it's like you've got a franchise quarterback for the most part. People agree with that. You've got a Pro Bowl level tight end. Your running back looks fantastic. You've got an offensive line that I think is steady. You got some glaring weaknesses that they're going to address in the offseason. But, I mean, I will not be surprised.
What do you do with Hollywood Brown right now?
You shut him down for the year. You put him on injured reserve. I think
I really would be shocked if he practices this week after coming out again with the heel.
You end his season.
And then that he's going to be in the lineup in cold Chicago a week from today.
Yeah, because the game plan in Chicago is going to be the same game plan you had in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
It's because it's the same type of scenario. They got an inconsistent quarterback. A defense is playing well. Hollywood Brown, to me, is not a player that's helping you and hasn't helped you really since before Halloween.
Yeah.
And this is the team right now. We're not judging this team off of what they did in September. Like, this team has evolved. Trey McBride was not a focal point in this offense in September and October. Things change, right? So I think you shut him down. And if he wants to have a conversation with the Cardinals, like I think you would be very, very specific with him and his agent, basically saying, go out and test the market.
He's now had back-to-back games where he's played. He started those games. He hasn't logged a reception, and then he's exited that game with the same heel injury. I think this would be the definition of insanity. Like, if you're truly concerned about his health, you got to get this guy healthy enough to where he can make it through a whole game. We're looking at if they shut him down the rest of the season, Johnny, this is his contract year where he had 51 catches for 574 yards and 4 touchdowns.
That's a 1-year vet minimum deal next year. Wherever he goes, I'm predicting right now it's going to be a 1-year deal. and I don't think it should be in Arizona. Again, I'm fully off the bandwagon of 1 year prove-it deal. When I did my Johnny on the spot, maybe you do a prove-it deal and you let he and Kyler work in the offseason. Like, he's just not a fit for what they want to do. They want bigger players. They want bigger receivers. And again, it's like we always talk about. Like, unless you're proving it right there and you're gaming like Trey McBride and Kyler Murray and you're battling, Gardeck was a great example of that this year. They're not going to saddle their reputation or their future, I should say, on guys that aren't helping them. Like, Kyler Murray's helped them win games since he's come back. Trey McBride's done that. James Conner's going to stick around because of that. I think DJ Humphries is really helping himself right now this last quarter of the season. I think he's got a really good chance to be back, assuming they don't have a chance to grab one of the top 2 tackles. If you're not helping this team, if you're a Steve Keim big-ticket acquisition, goodbye, you're out.
Yeah, I think that them already having a significant amount of cap space, including DJ Humphries' number for next season.
Yeah.
And the way that he's been consistent, I think he's only missed 1 game this year and held down the left tackle spot. You know, I don't know if you mess around with flip-flopping him in Paris next season.
I think he's insurance until the draft.
Yeah.
And listen,
and I'm curious to see if Monty looks at, and I know that they're looking to get bigger and more physical at the wide receiver position, if he approaches the wide receiver position as trying to, like how he did the offensive line this offseason, where if he has some familiarity, if he has some relationships with these players, if he tries to bring back at least 1 or 2 of them, just to know that he's got it.
What do you even have, though? You don't even have anything right now.
But when you looked at it, like, you didn't have anything with Calvin Beachum. Like, you thought you had something with Will Hernandez. Like, he just signed some easy deals to make sure that he had at least players on the roster.
I think you saw enough good things from Beachum and Hernandez, though. I'm getting nothing from this group right now.
Yeah.
But you bring up a good point. I know we're going long here. Like this video, 300 likes is the goal. If you're not in a position to draft Marvin Harrison Jr. 3rd overall, do you feel like it's a mandate now? They got to go get somebody in free agency. I almost feel like right now, like you can't get Marvin, and you're like, well, I'm going to get a mid-round or a mid-first round receiver with my first. When you don't know who's going to be available, I don't think you can skip wide receiver in free agency.
But the thing is, like, some of it is out of your hand. Like, if Cincinnati pays T. Higgins,
people get tagged,
they get tagged, if
you might have to go pay
Calvin,
Gabe Davis.
Yeah, Calvin Ridley. Like, Jacksonville's going to have a tough. They're going to have to figure out because they're going to have to pay Josh Allen on the edge, and they're going to have to pay Calvin Ridley, who they traded for last season while he's out for gambling. And then there's the Michael Pittman Jr., who I think it's going to be a pretty easy decision for the Colts that if they can't sign him, that they would tag him, and they'd feel comfortable with the season that Pittman's had to give him $21 million for the franchise tag while they work out a deal. But yeah, Arizona Animal, like, then you look at the trade market. Like, Scary Terry McLaurin, maybe that's somebody who becomes an option for you. He's got the size. It is strange to see Sam Howell put up all these robust passing stats. Now, I know a lot of them are empty calories for a bad team, but why is he not, the top guy there? But, I think that he's going to have to get creative outside of, like, if they get the 3rd overall pick and they're in a prime position to get Marvin Harrison Jr.
I still think, Gabe Davis is off of back-to-back no-catch games. He's got his numbers are barely better than Hollywood's.
Okay.
But he's 6'2", and I think if you're going to allocate some marginal funds to a receiver, you're going to do it with your type. You're going to do it with a Gabe Davis, and you're not going to double down on what's not working. I think you could go into the draft with Michael Wilson, Gabe Davis, and then try to get a first-round receiver and maybe add one on day 3, and then just kind of let the chips fall where they may and see who ascends in training camp. I don't hate that plan. But I don't like the plan of Marvin's not available. Let's just re-sign Hollywood. Let's just go through the motions.
No, I don't think that's.
I mean, you talk to a lot of people. It's just like, well, you have to re-sign Hollywood. That's a mandate. You have nobody at that position. I think your eyes have been open to what doesn't work.
The good thing is, there's relationships now on this coaching staff all over the league, including passing game coordinator Drew Terrell, who came from Washington. Another reason to point to Terry McLaurin or maybe that staff or that wide receiver core to bring in somebody just for a supplemental player. 3 players are going to be under contract once the final whistle blows on this team at the wide receiver position. Zach Pascal, who I'm not sure you could be as low as 2. Pascal might be under contract, but are they going to move forward with him? They have a spot for him outside of special teams. So it's like you realistically have 2 wide receivers, and it's Rondell Moore and Michael Wilson. Rondell Moore, he's played 14 straight games out of the gate, which it ties his career high.
I love Greg Dortch.
Yeah.
I think he's going to be the Greg Dortch of this team next year.
Yeah.
I think he's going to be asked, you want to be on this team, you got to return kicks and punts, and you got to do dirty work underneath. And I think what's Rondell Moore going to say? No. And they're going to say, we're going to throw it to our big physical targets. I agree with this in the chat. I think Kyler Murray, according to Robert, needs more time with Michael Wilson. I think that's a big part of this.
Mm-hmm.
Kyler came out and said, like, he's a great player. I need to make it work with him. I think it's a combination of Michael's injury, a rookie wall, Kyler's injury, Kyler's comfort level. I mean, like, that's really hard to ask of somebody. November, hey, work with this rookie receiver out of the 3rd round and just kind of have it simultaneously be plug and play. Dobbs made it look easier than I thought. Carving up San Francisco, he had been here for an hour, but I think I'm not ready to punt on Michael Wilson as being a good starting receiver yet. You got to be open to it. He's got a couple games here, but
I mean, they're going to have to add.
They're not even throwing to him right now.
5 guys.
I'm for it. Got it. Got the receiving core. Start over, because I think you people are going to scoff at this. Somebody
did mention, like, Daniel Arias, like, could he develop and graduate from the practice squad? And I have just higher aspirations for the organization than that. I mean, you hope that some of the guys you identified and that you've developed and that have been getting the practice but not play for this team this season, that somebody could turn into a player for you. But I mean, right now, as it stands, like, you got to go out into free agency, and I think you got to, like, sign 3, and then you got to draft 2.
You're preaching the I've been trying to draft 2 in the first round of my
first round. But, like, when we talk about the talent disparity, like, the 49ers, sure, they drafted Ayuk and they drafted Debo, but they also drafted in the trenches, and it's going to have to be a big trench draft for the Cardinals.
Right. It will be. But again, I trust that this franchise can do more with less at a lot of positions. You can't do that with receiver. If guys can't get open, they can't get open. And guess what? That puts pressure on your offensive tackles, offensive line, as it did today, and it puts pressure on Kyler Murray. And Kyler Murray went down. He's going to stay down. If guys can't separate and get open, and you can't have a rhythm in your passing game, Kyler Murray's going to get hurt again. Like, that's the reality of the situation. Now, he's a tough SOB. He came back in this game today. I thought he rallied and played okay. And I think the run game is on point. When they want to commit to the run, they've shown you. They've run it on Dallas. They've run it on San Francisco. They've run it on damn near everybody. They're top 10 in rushing. The passing game, I would not be surprised after this game if they're bottom 2 or 3 still in passing game. Like, that's got to be a priority. And I think it will be. Super Chat, Dan T, $5. I admit I was wrong about Tune. You double down on Kyler. Yeah, because I think we've got a better resume for Kyler Murray. And there are going to be a large portion of our audience, and rightfully so, everybody's up to their opinion. If the Cardinals are picking 2, there are going to be people who want them to take a quarterback. Mm-hmm. We're prepared to have that conversation. And listen, Cardinals, if they do anything, if they do not commit to Kyler Murray at that January press conference, if they've got the number 2 pick, then the floodgates will open. But I think you're going to be disappointed, because I think that's going to happen if you're anti-Kyler. I think if Kyler Murray plays pretty good to good the rest of the year, and I think he was okay today. I don't think he was terrible. And he has some nice moments. They're gonna double down on him in January, and they're not gonna go to Drake May's pro day, and they're not gonna stir up headlines, and it's not gonna be Keim, Josh Rosen, Cliff Kingsbury, Kyler Murray-esque. I think they'll be very clear with what their intentions are, because I think they know that if they support him with the right kind of weaponry, you are a playoff team. Like, even the biggest Kyler skeptics, look at the NFC, look at the state of this team. You're telling me this team isn't one off season away from being a playoff team?
Well, I just don't think that the jury is not out in the organization. Like, I think they've probably made their decision, and I feel like they've made the decision to move forward with Kyler. And, like, they might be at North Carolina's pro day, but it could be to watch Tez Walker.
Yeah.
And it could be to do their due diligence to be ready for any scenario.
Yeah.
But I have the the feeling that this, especially with their actions, that they're moving forward with Kyler Murray, and they feel like that's what's best for the organization. That's the quickest path to finding consistent success, and they're going to continue to empower Kyler Murray because that's the right move. What the previous regime did was just downright just pitiful, and how they use in leaks and various sources and stuff to try to mudsling in the public arena, and it set I think the organization back, and that this organization knows better than to do that. Like they're going to I feel like as far as the front office, the coaching staff, they've got the infrastructure, and now they've got to create the personnel on the field infrastructure for success for this overall roster.
Speaking of success, you can find some right now. Go PHNX.com, become a diehard, pick up a free hat and or shirt. It's my new favorite sweatshirt I got. If you can see it at the merchandise locker on our Black Friday deal. Speaking of deals, become a diehard. Jump in the exclusive member Discord. I'm sure it's popping right now. Can't wait to dive in. Post-game show. Also, check out the work of Go PHNX Cardinals beat reporter Howard Balzer getting the skinny from Jonathan Gannon and company on today's post-game. It's been a fun day. I'm always having a good time. We're out on location, Gila River, BetMGM. Even when the Cardinals are run over, like they were by Christian McCaffrey and company, being able to hang with all of you, enjoy it together in this community that we've built together. We haven't built it. Damon hasn't built it solo. We've all done it together, and we all want what's best for this franchise, and we're here to hold them accountable.
That's right. That's right. And with the draft order as it stands, 3rd overall, we'll see what's going on with the Bears this week. We're going to do some welfare checks on our friends over at CHGO. And then the Patriots. Winnable game, our award-winning producer, Damon Dog, he did point out that their upcoming game with the Pats have not lost to Gang Green since 2017. So is that a winnable game for them? Bailey Zappi fell back again this week, and the Patriots lost. So it's going to be fascinating to see. This is going to be a race to the bottom.
Can I just say this real quick? Cardinals lose to the Bears. They got to go to Philadelphia. I mean, I think it becomes more and more a talking point. What do you do with Kyler Murray in that finale if Marvin Harrison Jr. is within your grasp? I'm fascinated by that. We're the only people talking about that, and people are like, no, you play him, you do. I don't know. Did you watch the receiving core today? I know everybody here in the chat did. If the Cardinals lose these next 2, which is possible, they're going to be an underdog.
It's so tight right now at the top. I mean, Carolina winning a game. They're 2-12. Pats 3-11. Strength of schedule puts them ahead of the Cardinals. Cardinals 3-11, and then Washington, who got beat by the Rams today. They dropped their 5th straight. They're 4-10. They're just a game out with 3 to play.
Washington could really help the Cardinals by winning next week. You can help yourself. Like this video. Subscribe to PHNX Sports here on YouTube. Follow us on Twitter at Bo Brock. I'm at Johnny Venerable. I'm a broken record. Can we get this Twitter account to 10K? PHNX _Cardinals. Create fake accounts. Do whatever you got to do. I feel like we're being held back by Elon Musk. But again, we will persevere because of all of you. Get this video 300 likes. We are back, baby, tomorrow on a Football Monday. Loaded shows this week. Brian Baldinger back in the flow. We're going to hopefully talk with our friends, as you mentioned, from CHGO. We got Mock Draft Monday and more. In the meantime, for Damon Dog, Bo Brock, I'm Johnny Venerable. Thanks to everybody that came out. Gila River Resorts and Casinos at Wild Horse Pass. Take care.
We all silly like the mayor.